I knew that the relationship that I had with my children wasn't what I wanted it to be.
All of us had things that we had to face and learn about ourselves that weren't necessarily things that we wanted to admit or learn about ourselves.
Finding myself in this negative pattern of screaming at my kids.
We would try all these different tactics to get them to do what they're supposed to do.
It's hard to put it all together.
You just lose it when you get home sometimes.
Your message isn't being heard. Scream louder, yell louder.
It is absolutely a constant challenge to keep my emotions in check.
I'm sorry, Mommy yelled.
Do what it takes for them to follow your directions.
We all scream even if we don't scream with loud voice.
I saw a house book sitting on a table, and the title ScreamFree Parenting immediately caught my eye.
I thought, that is absolutely brilliant. Doesn't every parent want to be scream-free?
There's been a real freedom in being quiet.
The whole mood in our house is just more peaceful, calmer.
I didn't think it was possible to be scream-free and parent two small children.
It frees me of the control that parents sometimes want to have on their children.
It helped me focus on myself, calm myself down, be able to handle my children the way I wanted to.
I think it's a great way to, in a way, admit your faults and say, yep, that's me, I'm a screamer.
Scream-free is very important in my family and my life, and making it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Helps you in every bit of your life, not just parenting.
We all had a common language to talk about, to work through conflict.
It's hard to imagine how a marriage can survive without the scream-free principles.
I didn't realize the power to allow your children to make choices.
It transforms relationships between parents and children and transforms relationships between teachers and students.
I think it's the best parenting book I've ever read.
It was one of those Saturday mornings where my wife and I stayed up too late on Friday night, which guaranteed that the kids would get up too early on Saturday morning. You know, it's just a recipe for life, how it works that way. My kids were 4 and 2 at the time, and that Saturday morning was just not pleasant. There's a lot of crying, there's a lot of whining, there's a lot of complaining, and the kids were upset as well. So I decided, you know what? We need a change of scenery. Let's get out of the house. Let's go to Waffle House. Yay, Waffle House, syrup, waffles. Yeah, let's get out of the house. So we go. Don't know if you've been to a Waffle House on a Saturday morning recently. Just packed, you know, to the gills, packed. It's going to be an hour wait. But this Waffle House was thinking. They had a table set up with blank pieces of paper and crayons. Kids, if they drew a picture, they got a free waffle. They had these waffle hats. Waffle House hats, you know, like the grill man wears, and we're playing with those, and before you know it, we're seated. Now, those of us with more than one kid, right? Most of us. You know this unwritten rule when you're in a restaurant, whoever's on your side of the booth is kind of your territory, right? So my wife and daughter are on the other side enjoying this angelic scene of peace and harmony. There's little birdies floating over their heads. You know, they're feeding each other their waffles. It's angelic. Meanwhile, my son and I we're on the verge of World War III. Nothing is making him happy at all. He's complaining about everything. He takes the fork, he throws it, it hits the leg of the guy over here, and I'm sorry, but I'm right. I'm the scream-free guy, right? I'd even started presenting the material at that point. I'm going to keep my cool, right? Yeah, well, then the waffle comes, and I think that's what he needs. He was hungry, he needs the waffle, so I start to cut the waffle up. He doesn't want the waffle cut up. I don't know. Is he going to eat it like this? Who knows? He's just being two. He takes the whole plate, shoves it off the table, waffle and all. The plate breaks, waffle splatters over everyone's legs. I yank him up. His foot hits the back of a head of the guy sitting in the booth behind us. I'm sorry, and I'm yelling, and I just said, I got to get this guy out of here because he's obviously out of control, right? He's the one that's out of control. So we storm out of the restaurant. You know all the Waffle House architecture. It's all the same. Floor to ceiling, windows, you know. I didn't think I slammed open the door that hard. But it slams open, hits the wall. Now the entire wall is reverberating. So whoever wasn't watching the scene on the inside is now watching from the inside as we're outside on the sidewalk. And I'm pointing and I'm yelling and I'm puffing out my chest and threatening and doing whatever we do to, you know, to try and get our kids under control. Making an idiot of myself, but somehow, mercifully, the scene comes to an end, and we traipse back in, we sit down, and my son, he starts to eat his waffle, he's kind of sobbing, whatever, I'm kind of breathing heavy. I look across the table, and I know my wife is trying to be supportive, but she cannot contain the smirk on her face. I'm like, what? And she says, nice hat. Because the entire time, I still had this quality piece of merchandise squarely on my head. And I'm yelling at him and pointing at him, doing whatever it takes to get him to take me seriously, right? With the Waffle House on the hat on the head. Yeah. So, at that point, I am thankful that I had the wherewithal to realize I didn't need the hat to make me look silly. Because I was doing that all on my own. Because what I was doing is what so many of us do. I was acting just as immature as my child, with the hopes that by doing so, magically, that was going to make him act more mature. Hey, it's Hal here, and thank you for stopping by. You just saw me recall a pretty painful episode in my own parenting life. And my hope is, for your sake and for the sake of your kids, that you haven't been there. But my experience tells me that you probably have. And my guess is that you're like most parents who are really searching for a way to improve the relationships you have with your kids. And I think ScreamFree parenting can really help. So, keep watching, and I'll see you back here in a few minutes. The number one principle of ScreamFree parenting is that parenting is not about kids. It's about parents. And so, and this is a shocking first line of the book, I know it even sounds somewhat heretical, but the greatest thing we can do for our kids is learn to focus on ourselves. We have fallen into two very serious lies about parenting that have been perpetuated through the years, through a lot of parenting materials. It's sometimes subtle, but here are the lies. The first one is this. We believe that once we have kids, our life is essentially over. It's all about the kids. Everything's all about the kids. You think about it, you have a baby, and now family, it's like this force that brings family in out of the woodwork, and everybody's focused on the kid, and now your whole sleep cycles are based around the kid, and that's kind of necessary to some extent. But it sometimes becomes the dominant form of how we live as a family. It's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. Moms especially have been sold this lie that says, your new identity is mom. So you need to change your email address to momoflisa@aol.com, right? And you think about it, you might as well give up continuing to be a sexy, independent woman. You might as well just give up, get the denim jumper and the bob haircut and the Keds shoes and say, this is who I am. It's all about the kids. But dads have been sold this lie too. Everything. Now our whole identity is, I'm a dad. That's everything. Look at our minivans, right? With stickers emblazoned all over them, with our kids' names on the stickers, shouting to the whole world who really owns the van. And the rest of our lives, right? Because it's all about the kids. We even say it in these romantic ways. Don't you know you mean the whole world to me? Yikes. I'm in my mid-30s. I am not equipped to be anybody's whole world, but certainly not when I was 5 or when I was 15. That's an incredible amount of pressure we put on. You're my whole world. So you better not mess up. You better perform well so that I can put this badge on the back of my car that says I'm proud of my honor roll student, right? Which I always wonder, what happens if they don't make the honor roll the next time? You rip the sticker off, and there's this sticky residue of what you once were, Now you're an embarrassment to me. I was proud of you, but now I'm ashamed of you because you didn't make the honor roll. But the problem is, here, I cannot orbit my whole life around my kids without giving them the distinct impression that the world revolves around them. And then I have the nerve to call them self-centered when they act that way. But I helped create that by saying it's all about you. My kids are a huge, huge part of my life, but they are not my whole life by any stretch. By any stretch. They are not my whole life, and that's not good for them when I put them on that pedestal of saying it's all about you. That's the first lie we have to counteract. Here's the second one. And this is really, really difficult. This is harder to swallow than even the first one. Here's how the lie is stated, that you are responsible for your kids. Now, of course, I'm responsible for my kids, right? Who else would be? Parents of teenagers in here? Yeah, we got some parents of teenagers. Biggest complaint parents of teenagers have is, my kids just don't take responsibility for themselves. They don't take responsibility for their actions. Well, why should they? How can they if I've been taking responsibility for them their whole life? If I'm responsible for them, then you know what? I need to walk around with this tremendous sense of anxiety, making sure that they behave the right way, feel the right way, think the right way at all times. because I'm responsible for them. They really aren't thinking beings on their own, capable of making choices either way, that I'm ultimately responsible for their choices. So I better make sure that I get the best program, and you know, you can run out, there are 42,000 parenting books on Amazon.com. Run out, and so many of them promise the same thing. Take this program, employ it in your home, and voila, you'll have magically well-behaved kids. And so many of you have done those programs, and you know what? They don't work. You've got charts all over your refrigerator, right? Marking stuff down about how they're behaving at the moment, but it leaves you feeling even more exacerbated than before, because again, it's still manipulative and focused on your kids. And you still feel even more responsible for making sure they behave, think, and feel the right way. But they never learn to take responsibility for themselves that way. That's the core problem. And you think about it, if that's our core job as parents, our whole job is to launch our kids out into adulthood, prepare them the best we can for adulthood, well, then we have to help them become responsible for themselves very, very early on. I am not responsible for my kids and the choices they make. I am, however, very responsible to my kids for the choices that I make. And that's the critical difference of screen-free parenting. It's not, what can I do to make my kids behave? It's, how do I want to behave even when my kids don't? Which is a much more productive question. Because again, I'm the only one I'm in control of. I'm not in control of them. So, parenting is not about kids, it's about parents. And if that sounds different, it's because it is. It's really different from so many other parenting materials that are out there that all kind of promise the same thing. Employ this program, use this series of techniques, and magic, you'll have these wonderfully well-behaved kids. But my guess is you're watching this video because you've probably tried those programs, you've probably read those books, and they haven't worked. And since they didn't work, they left you feeling even more exasperated than before. And that's because, again, parenting is not about kids, it's about parents. And that means it's about our growth. Just as much as it is about our kids growing up, it's about us growing up. And that's what you're going to see next. So, keep watching, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Growing up is hard to do, especially for grown-ups. Because we already think we're grown up, right? These kids today, if they would just, if they only would just, if only my kids would do this, then I would feel so much better. Every time we say a sentence like that, then we are putting the entire power of the family into their hands. Because now we're waiting on them to change so that we can change in return. Instead, recognizing, you know what? How I behave is what validates me as a parent, not how my kids behave. That responsibility for thing is so powerful that you think about it. Report cards come out, we know the day that they're coming out, we rush to their book bags and rip those report cards out, you know, because we're not looking at their grades as much as we're looking at our own. Because we see it as a direct reflection on how we're doing as parents, right? Instead of recognizing how they do is how they do. How I do is not directly determined by their performance. How I do is determined by my performance. I want to tell you the truth. When it feels like your kids are testing you, they are. Because kids are put on this earth to make us grow up. My kids were 4 and 2 again. We moved into a new house here in Lawrenceville, 2-story foyer with a stairwell attached to one wall. Left a banister on the other side of the stairs with a little ledge of step on the outside of the banisters. Everybody know where this is going, right? So I'm coming out of my bedroom, top of the stairs, and what do I notice? My 2-year-old son climbing on the outsides of the stairs, his feet on the little ledge of step, you know, a little heel on the outside. He's just walking on his toes, hanging onto the banister pickets, and he's about halfway up, so his feet are about 5 feet off the ground. Nothing below him but hardwood floors. Okay, Mr. Screen-Free Parenting, what the heck do you do now? Well, I have options, and we always have options. Now, I wasn't planning on going downstairs, so I could have just checked out, kept on trucking down the hall, hope it works out for the best, you know, listen for the splat or something. You know, so often I hear, I'm not a screaming parent, I'm a laid-back parent. Well, that's just another form of screaming, because what you're doing is checking out and hoping it works out. And usually the laid-back parent is married to the screamer who's having to make up for your laid-backness, right? Did I just describe every marriage in here, right? But my integrity demands that I address this situation. My son's in mortal danger, right? So I need to stay connected to the situation. But what happens if I stay connected, but I can't stay calm? What happens if I give in to the natural anxiety of watching my son in mortal danger? What happens if I lunge for him? What happens if I yell, "Oh no"? It just increases the likelihood that he will fall. And that's the power of emotional reactivity. That's why we have to take it so seriously. It doesn't just make things worse. It actually creates the very outcomes we were hoping to avoid. That's the power of emotional reactivity, and thus, that's the power of staying calm. That's why if you get nothing from this presentation except this, please hold on to it. The greatest thing you can do for your kids is just stay calm, no matter what. Just stay calm, because that means that you can still be available to them as a resource, even in the midst of the most trying situation you can imagine. That's what our kids need from us. That's not easy to come by, though, is it? Because nobody can push our buttons like our kids, right? No one can push our buttons like our kids, except maybe our spouses. But that's for ScreamFree Marriage, which is coming out in a couple years. Nobody can push our buttons like our kids. And here's the thing. I want you to just think about that one thing your kids do that drives you absolutely crazy, okay? That one thing. Try and examine, why do they continue to do it even though it drives you nuts? One explanation is they are pure evil, right? Right? And that's a thought we've all had. These things really are just pure evil, right? So what's another explanation? They do the thing that drives you nuts. Why? Because it drives you nuts. It's like telling them, this is the one thing I can't handle. Please don't do this. It's like giving them a big remote control with one button on it saying, please don't push it. And we're shocked that they keep pushing it over and over and over again. Here's why they continue to push it. Because they want you to grow up to the place where it doesn't bother you anymore. Because then you can be depended upon. Then you're trustworthy. Then you're not a kid like them. And that's one of the most powerful things, is when your kids do that one thing that drives you nuts and you're just able to stand there. You know, you can talk like that to me all you want. That's not going to change the fact that you still have to X, brush your teeth, or you still have to go to bed. Or you can talk like that to me all you want, you're still going to have to suffer the consequences of doing that. But the more I can see, okay, whoa, this is a test. Just that moment right there creates the pause that can change everything. And that's really what this whole thing is about, is learning to create a pause between stimulus, your kids pushing your buttons, and response. Because in that pause is the potential for you to act out of your principles, not out of your fears. In that pause, you can actually choose what you want to do, not just have that immediate knee-jerk reaction that is, again, going to create the very outcome you were hoping to avoid. Hey, welcome back. Just want to take this chance to let you know about some of the other things you can find on our website at ScreamFree.com. There's a quiz there you can take to see how scream-free you really are. There's articles written by me and my wife. There's a chance to sign up for our free newsletter. And there's lots of other products, CDs, DVDs, workbooks. And they're all designed with one thing in mind, to help you become the parent you've always wanted to be. So, check it out at ScreamFree.com. Just as a lawyer has a practice and a doctor has a practice, we too, as parents, have to practice at this thing. And as long as you are more committed to your own personal growth as a parent than you are on trying to get your kids to behave, you will be amazed at the decisions you can make, including the decisions about disciplining your children. Which leads us to the next principle of scream-free parenting, learning to let the consequences do the screaming. There is something far more powerful than our own wisdom and teaching that's going to help our kids through life, help prepare them for life. And that's the power of consequences. I once worked with a woman. She was a single mother of 5 teenagers, right? Aged 13 through 19. And she was having this one particular battle with her 13-year-old. Same thing every morning. See, they lived close enough where she could walk to school, but she didn't want to. She wanted to ride with Mom, and Mom was glad to take her on her way to work, right? But you can imagine the battle they got into every single morning, where daughter would kind of sleep later and later, and Mom would get frustrated because she's got to be on time for work, and she would just start nagging, I'm not going to take you unless you do this, or come on, let's go, come on, every single morning. And as long as she was focused on her daughter, she would stay stuck in that pattern because she wasn't aware of her part in that pattern. She'd just say, if only my daughter would do this, then we could get to school on time and we'd have a great relationship, putting all the power in her hands. Instead, you know what she started to do was just realize, what happens if I just focused on me? My part of the pattern. So, one morning, knocks on the door. Daughter says, who is it? It's Mom. Can I come in? Sure. Just wanted to let you know that I'm leaving in 15 minutes, and I'd love for you to join me. Close the door. You know what happened? 15 minutes came, Mom left. And it's great, the way she tells the story is, you know, it wasn't until noon that she even really thought about her daughter. And so she got a phone call. Mom, what can I have for lunch? You're at the cafeteria. What do you usually have for lunch? No, I'm not. You left me. I'm at home. Again, exercising her ScreamFree muscle. You're going to go to school. You're going to get an unexcused absence, and we're going to talk about this later. Click. And again, she doesn't even think about her daughter until she gets home. Turns out the daughter did go to school, took an unexcused absence, which meant that she got zeros for all the work that she missed that morning. But she wasn't terribly, I mean, she was pretty upset, but she wasn't terribly upset because this was a Thursday. The next day was Friday, and that night was homecoming. And it was going to be her first homecoming. She had saved up money, bought a dress, she had a date. Her older sister said, you can come get dressed with the senior girls, go with us, you know. So she's excited. And except that she gets to school and she learns of another consequence the school has for unexcused absences. That if you have one during the week of a school event, you cannot attend school event. No homecoming. Now, who do you think she blames? Mom. Of course she blames Mom. And she's wailing. Mom describes it as just this horrible scene, just inconsolable, out of control. Mom, why did you do this to me? You know, and a mom is really, really torn at this point, right? Because this was not the intended consequence that the mom had in mind at all. But here's the trick. Well, here's the truth about life. Consequences are not just in our domain as parents. Earlier than we think, consequences are outside of our house, outside of our realm, our jurisdiction. Consequences with friends, consequences with school, consequences with the law. And it's our job to help prepare them for that. These incredible teachers in life are all out there for all of us. And so here's her choice, is she could fix the situation, but how? What would she have to do? She'd have to write a note, right? And the note would be a lie. What would be the consequence of that action? She'd be teaching her daughter, I'll rescue you no matter what. My anxiety, I can't handle it. I cannot handle watching you suffer, so I'll do whatever it takes to not have to go through that, even compromise my integrity. And then I'll wonder why my daughter doesn't have respect for me. Here's what she decided to do. She said, you know what? The school has its jurisdiction. You can't go to the dance. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't chaperone you on a date with your date, because obviously, you know what? Our actions affect others than ourselves, right? Affects her date. I'll take you to a dinner and a movie, and I'll chaperone you that way. But I won't take you to the dance. We face choices like this all the time. And so many times, and in the book, I have some rules for setting consequences. Like, don't set a consequence that's tougher for you to enforce than it is for them to endure. Like, you're grounded for 6 weeks. Come on, you're not going to do that. You're going to parole them after a few days, you know? Or telling a toddler, you know, no TV for a week. Come on, that's your babysitter, for crying out loud. You're not even going to be able to take a shower if you take a, you know? You just don't punish yourself that way because the kids will see right through it. There is tremendous power once we embrace the power of consequences. Yep, consequences are pretty important. And they can be invaluable in helping you structure your home and structure your relationships with your children. But now I want to talk to you about something that's even more important. Something that runs quite contrary to most of what you've probably heard about parenting. In fact, I think it's the most important thing we teach here at ScreamFree. And it's a principle we call learning to put on your own oxygen mask first. Take a look. We've all been on the airplane, right? We've heard the speech hundreds of times. In the event we lose cabin pressure, oxygen mask will deploy. If you're traveling with an infant or someone in need of assistance, put it on them first, right? Because remember, it's all about the kids. But that feels natural. Of course I'm going to take care of my kids. It's all about them. Make sure they're okay before I am. But here's the tremendous wisdom from the airlines. If I'm out of breath, I can't help anybody. But so many of us parents feel exactly that, out of breath, hoping that our kids will change so that we can regain our composure. We're out of breath. We're living everything for them. We're going from work straight to practice, right? And then we're helping them with their homework. And then we don't have time at all on the weekends for me and my wife to enjoy each other because we've got games and we've signed our kids up for so many things, all for them, right? And so I have couples all the time tell me, we haven't been to the movies in 5 years. We are out of breath because, you know what? We are not very good at taking care of ourselves. The Hebrew Bible, as well as the Christian New Testament, say, you know, the second greatest commandment is what? Love your neighbor as yourself, assuming you already do love yourself. Well, what happens if we actually did love our kids as little as we love ourselves? Think about breakfast. We're making them a wonderful, nice, healthy, balanced meal, and then we go out the door with coffee and a donut. What if we fed them the way we feed ourselves? What if we talked to them after they make a mistake the same way we talk to ourselves after we make a mistake? You stupid idiot, how could you do that again? Maybe you do talk to your kids that way. It's because that's how you're used to talking to yourself. Learning to take care of ourselves, I believe, is the most important thing we can do. What's the number one health crisis in this country? Obesity, right? We are not very good at taking care of ourselves because it feels selfish. You think about it, if I wanted to have this New Year's resolution, right, which everybody's has already gone away, right? It's February, or it's March. No one's sticking to those things still. But if I wanted to actually have a healthier eating style, lifestyle, and working out, well, think of the things that I would have to say no to, right? A lot of times I'd be eating a different dinner than my kids because I'd have to be eating a salad or healthy. And that. Think about how much I would have to spend time in the gym. And I'd have to say no to my family to do that. And that feels selfish. I would argue, though, that's the most unselfish thing you can do. Because what I'm saying is, you know what, I'm going to work on me and take care of me so that you don't have to. So that I can actually come to you from a position of fullness, emptying myself out for you, rather than coming to you from a position of emptiness, hoping that our interaction somehow fills me up. I'm going to tell you a truth that sounds very, very different than what you've heard, but what kids need most are parents who do not need them. It's very, very freeing to come to our kid and say, you know what, I don't need you to behave in order for me to feel good about myself as a parent. I don't need you to perform well in order to feel okay. I don't need you to make me feel loved or warm or respected or appreciated. So many times what we say at the end of the day is these kids just don't seem to appreciate all the sacrifices I'm making on their behalf, as if that's their job. That's not their job. They're kids. It's our job to pursue our own emotional needs, not pursue them from our kids. Because what that does is, again, put us in the position of needing them. It's difficult. But it's learning to love myself for my kids' sake. Okay, shameless plug time. Just want to remind you again about our website, ScreamFree.com, where you can check out a number of free resources as well as buy some of our other products, and I really do hope that you check it out. Because people that do keep using this word to describe the changes that they see happening in their lives. And the word kind of makes us uncomfortable. It's revolutionary. The people are telling us over and over that these principles, the more they embrace them, the more they are experiencing revolutions in their family. Now, I know that word gets thrown around a lot. People even talk about, detergent being revolutionary. But the truth is, when you actually do find something that helps you begin to make the changes in your life and in your relationships you've always wanted to make, well, I think that means revolutions are possible. And I think they happen every day. Here's how revolutions actually occur. Revolutions occur not by big groups getting together, all making one decision at a time. Revolutions occur, whether it be in a family or a nation or society, with one single person saying one simple sentence. I'm not sure what anybody else is going to do, but this is what I'm going to do. It's almost verbatim what was said a little over 50 years ago by a woman in Montgomery, Alabama. Rosa Parks was working for the NAACP at that time in 1955, so she was active. She actually said one time, though, nothing's ever going to change unless all the Negroes will come together as one. And as long as she was waiting for that to happen, it wasn't ever going to happen. But one day, in December of 55, she was getting on a bus, and it was kind of a typical thing. She got on. Now, the law stated that a person of color could not sit across the aisle from a white person. So they're going along, and the bus gets filled up, which meant the first 4 rows had white people, and the 5th row, which Rosa Parks was on, had 4 persons of color sitting on it. And they came to a next stop, and a white gentleman came on. Now, what that meant was that the 4 people in the 5th row had to get up and give up their seat for the one white gentleman. And they had to go stand in the back. And 3 of them did. But one, she just said, not this time. Now, witnesses say she wasn't angry. She didn't have a frown on her face. She certainly didn't yell out loud. And here's the key point. She didn't make anybody else change for her benefit. She just said, you know what? I'm not moving. And the bus driver says, ma'am, I'm going to have you arrested. You're going to do what you're going to do. But I'm not moving. I'm not sure what anybody else is going to do, but this is what I'm going to do. That's what actually creates change. That's why it's not up to anybody but you. You want to start making changes in your family, start an actual revolution in your family, then all it takes is that singular devotion, that commitment to yourself. It's not a commitment to anybody else. It's a commitment to yourself that says, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to refuse to lose it no matter what. Even if that means I have to step away from the situation, give myself a timeout before I come back. You do not have to be a perfect parent. There is no such thing. You don't have to have all the right things to say at all the right times. You don't have to have all the latest data in order to make the best decisions. I believe every parent in here has the capacity of being a great parent because I believe you've already got great parenting principles, great parenting desires. But in the heat of the moment when we lose it, all those principles, all those desires go right out the window. All we have to do is be committed to creating that pause. But no matter what my kid does in the grocery store right here, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to calm myself down. And I'm going to take a break before I make a decision. You can do that. And so it gives you remarkable power to make decisions that you never thought of before. Like when your son comes down and announces, I'm bored. How do we usually respond? With anxiety. How could you be bored? Or maybe anger. How could you be bored with all those toys upstairs? You know what's boring? Working my job 9 to 5 to give you all those toys upstairs. That's boring. I'll tell you. Instead, a ScreamFree parent takes a pause and says, wow, you're bored. That stinks. I hate it when I'm bored. What are you going to do? You put it on them. And that gives them this tremendous sense of freedom, exploration. You can make decisions like that once you begin to take yourself a lot more seriously than you take your kids' behavior. Your kids are going to act like kids. How are you going to act? Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.